Executive Vice President of Communication and Public Affairs of Global Strategy Group, Jade Floyd.
Good morning, Next Narrative. Do you all have permission? I am so honored to be here with each of you today, in community, in conversation. You are the visionary change makers, social impact leaders, and many of my peers, and a lot of my clients. So it really is an honor to be here today. I'm Jade Floyd, EVP at GSG, all the acronyms. And I am here to introduce you to two revolutionary leaders. You know, I've interviewed a lot of philanthropists, tech titans, entrepreneurs in my lifetime. And there have never been two more individuals that I have been this blessed, privileged, and more prepared to interview than Desmond and Sheena Meade. So I'm going to introduce you to them both. We're going to get started. I want you all to buckle up and get ready. Desmond is a champion for reentering citizens and president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, a group of more than 70 organizations and returning citizens dedicated to ending the disenfranchisement of people with criminal convictions. Desmond led the organization to a historic victory in 2018 with the successful passage of Amendment 4. And Amendment 4 represented the single largest expansion of voting rights in the United States in a half a century. And it brought the end to 150 years of Jim Crow era law in the state of Florida where we sit today. He was recognized by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people, which is a really hard list to get on, y'all, because I've had a lot of clients want to be on this list. He has also been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Think about that. He is a recipient of the Ford Global Fellow and a MacArthur Genius Fellow as well, leading and empowering civically engaged individuals across states in this nation. Now, y'all know that next to every great man is an even greater woman. Sheena Meade empowers the disenfranchised. She is a walking barrier breaker and one of America's leading experts in legal system reform. As CEO of the Clean Slate Initiative, she leads a national bipartisan organization to advance policy that clears all eligible arrest and conviction records in the United States. And under her leadership, the organization has passed legislation that has provided a path for millions of people to receive full and partial record clearance. In 2023, the Clean Slate Initiative received a landmark financial commitment through the Audacious Project, which we'll talk about today. This award supports the strategy of the organization to unlock opportunities for millions of additional people here in the US. It's an unprecedented investment in second chances. And prior to becoming the CEO of this organization, she helped also lead and found the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and was its first organizing director amongst many other hats. She has exemplified bipartisanship. She's worked with countless policymakers, activists, and even entertainers like Lady Gaga, John Legend, and Rock Nation. So, before we welcome them to this stage, we're going to give you a little glimpse into the collective transformational power that is the Meades.
I'm honored to do that. My beautiful wife, oh my God.
The voter in our house. We coming for them ballots.
Sheena Meade. I always used to say, right next to a man is a better woman, and sometimes she's actually leading the way.
Yes, yesterday, and I brought this pen with me, the governor has signed the bill, and with a stroke of a pen, we saw 2.3 million people, lives change.
You ever feel like you wanna stop? You ever been close to the top? You ever looked at your past and kept moving forward and never looked back?
didn't know we was gonna have a mission. I didn't know God was gonna have us do all this. So I did not feel what you felt.
Yeah, but I didn't know that either.
I didn't know it was bigger than us, for real.
Amendment that will restore voting rights.
The Slate Act would seal the criminal
voting
records.
rights in the state has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
I didn't come all the way to Vancouver, Ted, to tell you bad news. I got some good news. This record clearance problem is solvable and it's fixable, and we're doing the damn thing.
I'ma keep fighting, I will hold my ground. I'ma keep fighting, ain't nobody ever gonna hold me down.
Wherever you're weak, right, that's probably where my strength kicks in, and I'm there to support. Because you did the exact same thing for me.
We have been able to, if not change narrative, but create a narrative that you can trust in the leadership of directly impacted people to lead their movement and to execute their vision.
Stay driven, push my line till that line's crossed. Hard work every day, no days off.
Our personal stories, I don't think have been the fuel that have driven us. I think it's been the stories of others, the pain of others. And it just so happened because of our personal stories have just helped us really be able to frame a lot of the work that we do for others, because we have at least walked a few blocks in their shoes.
Please welcome to the stage Desmond and Sheena Meade.
I hope y'all are ready. I hope y'all brought tissue. Ooh, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. First, Jade, our son created that video, so I just want to give a shout out to Xavier. Our son.
Can we hire him for?
Yes, you can. XM Productions. Yeah.
Okay. It is really an honor to sit with both of you today, and it's just a privilege. And when I sit down with leaders, the first thing I always want to talk to them about is the leadership labyrinth of how you got to now. So I want each of you to give us a little glimpse, and we have a full hour, so this can be a deep glimpse into your journey to CEOs and champions for social justice issues. And I would like you to begin, Sheena.
You know, as much as I like to start first before Desmond, Desmond leadership has actually been a blueprint for my leadership. And so I would love if I could pass it to Desmond, because a lot of the things that, why are you already crying?
I know, right?
Y'all didn't see a lot of you. I need to bring the tissue up. Ty, where you at with the tissue? He's a man that feels he's okay. He's giving himself permission to cry.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. George.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I will say, and I mean, we're a piggyback, but you know, we're both these X factors, right? When I say that, that means like where people have X'd us out. Going back to our stories, and he'll tell his story, whether it was just, I would say all my pain points in my life have led me to my purpose to be a CEO. Whether it was being a teen mother at the age of 14, then 16, then 19, or a single mother at the age of 26. I just posted this post the other day. I was just reflecting on my way down here. And it's a picture of me and my 5 children by a tree. And I was 26 years old, and that's the time I had a talk with God. I'm like, my life got to be different than this. And I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to give myself permission because I got lashes on. But, and I want to look good for the camera because they got the good lights. Y'all know what I'm saying, sisters.
We need more. That's not going to be enough. Okay.
But, you know, just thinking about where, you know, what me and the children have gone through to get to this point. And I just believe whether it was being housing insecure, whether it was fighting for like Black and brown people to be having access to the polls, that has all led up. And I mean, we'll get into that story, we'll go deep, but has been my pain points that has led me to my purpose.
And you know, that pain, the purpose thing, I was just sitting there thinking about it, right? And like, yeah, we tend to cry a little bit. I know I do because of my story, but I just want to let folks know that the tears are not tears from pain. It's actually tears of joy and tears of wonder, right? And how I've gotten to this point from which I came. And so it wasn't too long ago, not too far from here, I was standing in front of railroad tracks, waiting on a train to come so I can jump in front of it. I was homeless, I was addicted to drugs, I was recently released from prison, and I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And I stood there for quite some time and I waited, and even the thought of the pain I was gonna have to endure when that train severed my body was not enough to make me move. I was tired and I was ready to go. But God had other plans that I did not know of. And he held that train up. And eventually I crossed those tracks and I checked myself into drug treatment that was about 2 blocks from the tracks. And after completing that, I moved into a homeless shelter. And while there, I decided to enroll in school. And let me tell you, I went to school not to be an advocate or not even necessarily to get an education. I went to school to do something to prevent me from relapsing, because I battled drug addiction for quite a number of years. And I would stop, my life would improve, and something would happen and I would go right back to where I was, or if not a worse place. And little did I know that that set me on a path of recovery, and a big part of recovery is service. How do you give back? And I started doing that, and in the process of that, I discovered something that was so beautiful. And that was that no matter who I was, no matter how low I was, no matter what titles I didn't have or had, or how much money I didn't have or have, that there was always somebody out there that I could benefit, that I could be a blessing to. And so I learned early on to take the pain and turn it into something that would help others. And so in a nutshell, my life has just been about just giving back and making sure that the life that I live leaves something on this planet that will be beneficial when I'm gone.
Sheena, you shared with me that someone told you you would meet someone like Moses. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's on the stage today, but the evolution of your relationship and what brought you two together, I love the story that you shared in your book. And if you all have not read the book, Let My People Vote, put it in the cart today. How has the relationship evolved since that day you first met and transformed into this partnership that has mobilized tens of thousands of individuals? You have restored
Millions, Jade, millions.
Tens of that, but you've restored voting rights for millions, tens of millions, and you've raised nearly $200 million to do it all.
Yeah.
What does that evolution look like?
So I got to give context, because you done threw out Moses, and people probably, what the hell is she talking about? Any single ladies in here? Okay, girl, y'all bow ass is coming. So let me tell y'all quick to give the context. So in my faith tradition, we have people we call prophets, in just secular world, they call them seers, psychics, or whatever. And, it was like 2011, and I just, I was going through this transition period. I went to my mom's house, and this man started ministering to me, and he was like, are you thinking about getting married? At that time, I was dating this guy. And I was like, that sounds good. He's like, yeah, that's not your husband. I was like, ooh. And so he goes, your husband is going to be someone who's going to leave a legacy behind. And my mom and my sister sitting here, someone who God's going to send for your children, because at the time I had, I was single with 5 children. And he said, it's going to be like Moses. I was like Moses? Moses got lost. I was like, And so he was like, focus on your career and your children. And just like in the Bible where Boaz found Ruth in the garden, like, working in the field, that's how it happened, something like that. And like he said other stuff. So that stuck with me. And I prayed, and I was always like telling my girls, like, girl, my Boaz is coming. My Boaz is coming, girl. My Boaz is coming. And then like it's getting towards January, and I'm with my aunt, and she's a minister. And I was like, they say he's gonna be like Moses, but they ain't telling me he's gonna be lost in the wilderness. Where is he? Like, he ain't get here yet. And so, when I met Desmond, I was actually working, in Tallahassee on Legislative Black Caucus Week. And someone came to introduce me to Desmond or introduced Desmond to me. And Desmond just looked at me. He met my sister and myself, and he goes, "I'm supposed to know you." And I was like, "I don't think it's me. I don't know you from nowhere. I don't think that was me." And then my sister trying to shade me, who's older, she was like, "Oh, you know, if it's for business, that's me. You supposed to meet me." And right, I felt like a little Cinderella moment. I was like, and like Sheena's just all about that play or whatever. And he's like, "No, I'm supposed to meet you." And we talked. But and we could talk more about our story. Go ahead.
My credit, though, because I recognized her immediately. It took her a minute because she was fighting it, you know, but I immediately knew that, yes, that there was something special with it, and I recognized her for what she was, and that was God's gift to me, you know, and I've been going on this this spiritual journey for quite some time, and one of the things I do know is that it's not, you know, I may want something, but what God has in store for me is much greater. And I learned that through my recovery and to just concentrate on his work. And so when, you know, it just came over me that, yeah, this is who God has to place in my life at this moment. And like, I was ready to marry her right then and there. I'm ready. I was good to go. So, matter of fact, I think I proposed a couple months later.
Right here?
Right across the hall.
No, in the conference center.
No, it was right across the hall.
Oh, across the hall.
Right across the hall where you guys had breakfast was where I proposed to Sheena. In June of 2012, we met in February of 2012. I proposed in June of 2012, and we married in December 12/12/12, that very same year, because I already knew what time it was. And this year is our 12th year anniversary, and we're right back here.
Yeah, and just to circle up on Moses, because when he proposed to me, he said, "God has brought us together for something bigger than us." We never imagined what the bigger than us was, I don't think. But the story of Moses, you know, he was leading his people to the promised land. And it was a battle. And that has been that journey, right? And it was funny because when Desmond started working on his, like, I guess his slogan, if y'all know Desmond, y'all saw, "Let my people vote." Anybody caught it? Moses, "Let my people go." And that was a moment I was like, oh my God, that's what the prophet said, Moses. I was like, Jesus is real. I mean, I already knew. I was like,
oh, geez.
And so when things would come up, when the governor, you know, when Desmond had an opportunity to get his rights restored, and we traveled to Tallahassee, he had already worked to restore the voting rights of 1.4 million people here. He's the leader of the returning citizens here, you know. And we go to Tallahassee for him to get his civil rights restored. And this day, I'm telling about, like, Governor DeSantis was like Oprah. He's like, "You get your rights, and you get your rights, and you get your rights." Desmond gets up there, he's like, And they had all these cameras in the room. And he basically told Desmond he was not worthy of getting his rights restored. And that's when I was like, I did the little whoopee. You know, everything you done to us. I called Keone, our best man who's a lawyer. I was like, "What are the charges that I could get if I act up on the Capitol Hill?" I was like, "Can you get me out?" And I was like, he's so mean. And I had to be reminded, like, it's the Moses and Pharaoh story. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're gonna have the victory. Like, elected people are only here for a season, right? And we'll still be here liberating our people. So it's been a journey. He's been that Moses, so.
Yeah. Well, Sheena, if he's Moses, you are the North Star.
Hey,
you are the beacon that guided him out of the wilderness and so many other countless individuals. And I want to talk to you both about owning the story, owning the narrative. That's why we are all here today. Talk to us a little bit about this broader movement of restoration of rights, but also embracing the narrative that is the story that both of you have opened up to countless individuals and really motivated and driven this movement.
I'll start because it's something you said to me. So when Desmond and I were dating, you know, I did what most women do. I was like, let me just Google this man, make sure, see what he got going on. See if he's Googleable, anything come up. And he had a few things come up, but I mean, if you go Google Desmond now, you only can see all the successes and aspirations. I mean, he got so much content. I'm like, dang, I'm trying to get on your level. I need me a wiki page. But when I Googled him, his mugshot came up. And he was fine. I mean, he was shaped. I mean, you was fine in that mugshot. I ain't gonna lie. You know, you was on the yard when you got out. I don't know what you was doing in there, but you was fine. But I was like, I called him. I was like, it's cute, y'all. Y'all could Google and find it. Young, buff, all up in the picture. I was like, Des, you know your mugshot pops up. I was like, you don't want to figure out how we could scrub the internet? He was like, no. I was like, really? And that's when Desmond taught me about owning your own narrative. He was like, it's best for me to tell my story than somebody else to tell my story. He goes, I'm not shamed by that. He goes, you need to own your story. And that, you know, that helped me really realize because, you know, people think that I, like, you know, my story, I was arrested also in my 20s. And I could go into that story when you want me to, but I shied away from my story. It was shame, and I never even owned my story, didn't talk about my story. I really didn't talk about my story till I started leading Clean Slate. And that was 4 years ago, because there was so much shame and stigma that came with it. It already came a lot of shame and stigma because I was already a single mom, I was on welfare, I was on Section 8. I went to jail for the first time for trying to feed my family. I wrote a check for $87.26 that bounced and got returned. And about 2 months later, I had 2 cops showing up at my door. And when they knocked, I was like, well, they ain't here for me. I don't know what they're looking for, you know. And they said, Sheena, we have a warrant for your arrest. And they arrested me in front of my 4 children. And I went to jail that day. And listen, y'all, I mean, I laugh about it now. I was so green. I was just, you would have thought I caught like a very much larger charge, the way I was snotting and crying. I mean, it was traumatic though. It was very traumatic. I didn't know what this meant. My kids are there. My kids could have got taken. You know, child services could have got my kids. Thank God for the nosy neighbor that finally, like the day she was looking out the window, I'm like, come over here, help me out. And I thought it was all over. I mean, you know, $87.26. My bail was $500. I had fees, I had to pay the check back. And I just thought, this is over. I did what I was supposed to do. I gave the people their money back. But my real sentence started then, because then I was denied housing. I was denied jobs. It was hard for me to even volunteer at my kids' school to be a chaperone to go to SeaWorld because of the arrest record. And so, yeah, I've started to learn how to own my story, own my narrative, and know that I'm not defined by my past. I'm not defined by that one moment. And, you know, learning this asset framing, you know, even restructuring the way my bio is laid out. I was telling Trabian. And so, but yeah, Desmond definitely has taught me about owning the narrative.
Owning the narrative is extremely important, and for 2 reasons that I can think of right now. And one of it is it lessens the pain. And what I mean by that is when you learn how to laugh at yourself, others laughing at you will not hurt you as much, right? And so you learn to just, you know, really not get too serious and not get too sensitive. The other thing about the narrative is that it gives you control to shape how you're viewed, right? You can take a negative and turn it into a positive, right? And I could choose to be that guy in the mugshot with the F word or whatever, or I can become a champion. I can become a returning citizen. I could humanize me more, you know, and that's what, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, but for some reason when we first started, you know, it seemed like that was the right way. It just seemed like the right thing to do, right? That how do we take somebody from being a convict or being a felon and turn them into a returning citizen or a person who have a felony conviction, just humanizing folks. And when we're able to do that, when we're able to bring out the better qualities, right, and when we're able to humanize people, then what we see is that it's much easier for us to change hearts and minds because people are not looking at the thing, they're looking at themselves.
I want to transition into the Audacious Project.
Yeah.
And it is really an honor to receive that prize and to have the backing of the TED community. And if you've not seen her TED Talk, y'all, definitely please watch that in the coming days. It'll really just change the way you see the world. Talk to us about what led you to create the Clean Slate Initiative, and talk to us a little bit more about what the Audacious Project has enabled you to do and bring forward.
Yeah. So, 4 years ago, it was 2020, during a pandemic, and actually, I was actually working in philanthropy, recovering. And I was excited about it because I just left FRC, and I was like, Desmond, I'm really tired of organizing. I don't organize enough. Like, I want to see where the money resides, because we went through so much to get funding for the work that Desmond was leading. And to keep it real, we worked out our house. We worked out of my mom's house. Desmond was working out his car across the country, across the state. Dropping off, we didn't have funding. It was so hard. It was so many loops to get people to invest in that vision for the first part. So, when I had the opportunity to work in philanthropy, I'm like, I want to do this different. I want to reimagine how we move funding to grassroots organizations. And so I was able to do that. And then, in the position I was in, I'm just gonna say for where I was at, I was like, there's gotta be more to this for me, right? And I remember I went to a funders meeting, and I went to go say everything that was wrong, how folks were thinking, right? Because they were making all the decisions for the field. They was laying out a whole blueprint of how they want the field to move. And I was like, are y'all crazy? Do y'all think this is how it works on the ground? This is not, y'all hear this? I was really flabbergasted. And I remember just saying, it's time for me to move on. And they asked me to lead a session. I was like, y'all sure y'all want me to lead? And I led the session. I kind of dropped the mic. And I was like, okay, they're not gonna ever more than probably talk to me. And folks started calling me. And it was a lot of it was a funder collaborative that started to invest into Clean Slate. It was supposed to just be this campaign for 2 to 3 years to see if they could pass 2 to 3 states for record clearance, automating record clearance. And so just so you know, to get your record cleared in states across the country, it's really hard. You gotta go through a lot of process, paperwork, petitions, waiting 10 years, just to see if you're eligible. And we wanted to automate that process. They had already done it in Pennsylvania and was really successful, and they wanted to scale. Y'all know that word, scale. So they wanted to scale. And so the opportunity came, and I was crazy enough to think that I could do it. And so when I got into the role, a lot of things were happening. One, trying to, how can I say this, dismantle a lot of the white supremacy ways of working, and being a Black woman leading this movement, trying to work with funders who were very heavy-handed. And then George Floyd got killed, and then that was a move, dealing with all that racial tension across the country and also within organizations. But it was successful in COVID. We actually passed about 3 to 4 states. And then the funders came back and was like, okay, what's next? I was like, what's next? I was like, oh, and so it went from a campaign to us really building a movement. And then to today, right now in 4 years, 12 states have passed Clean Slate policies, and 15 million people are eligible for full or partial record clearance.
So,
now
she gave you,
let me give you the audacious part. I didn't get to the audacious part.
You didn't?
I didn't get there yet.
That is what
that was there.
Exactly.
That's there. Yeah, and so he's coming.
No, I'm biting at the chops right now because she missed something very big that I think is so relevant. But go ahead.
Okay.
Tell them about the audacious phase.
Okay, and so that's how we work. This is the meat effect, y'all. This is the meat effect. And so then the opportunity came. Some of my partners, who I would just say, we always say a lot about philanthropy, but there are some folks who have done philanthropy the right way. And I do want to shout out Blue Meridian Partners. I don't know if Jim Shelton is in here. And Mindy, who really pushed me and just saw me as a leader and pushed me in the ways I didn't know I could be pushed or challenged, and just say, we believe in you, we see you. And I'm not gonna get emotional. I ain't gonna get emotional. But when Jim said that to me, it reaffirmed, I'm not crazy, I'm doing this the right way. And so when that happened, I got, you got to do this TED Talk. And so the audacious is not like this grand prize. You have to work for that shit. They make you put a whole proposal and plan together. You get bridge span. And long story short, we got $75 million to just to the next level to get 14 million more people access to just opportunities.
14 more million.
So all right, so I think, so as I was listening to Sheena, I thought about something, right? We both walked into projects, right? So before I started FRC, it was just nothing but a listserv where all the big organizations, the nationals with the beautiful initials, like ACLU or NAA, all these big highfalutin organizations was over trying to change policies in Florida for quite a number of years, right? And same thing with Sheena was that when she walked into Clean Slate, it was only supposed to be a project that was going to last 2 years. There was no expectations that it would even go any further. We both walked into projects and we turned it around because we were both directly impacted people, right? That had a vision that was, I mean, her story was a clean slate story. My story was a restoration of rights story.
I still don't have a clean slate,
right?
Florida.
And she still don't, but that's that's part of the fire. But the fact that we were able as people, and here's the thing, my wife now has an honorary doctorate degree, right? But neither one of us, at the time that we stepped into the roles that we stepped into, had the credentials that anybody would think would actually legitimize us for even stepping into that position. We were not supposed to be in that position, right? Conventional wisdom would say, no, we're the wrong people, right? Conventional wisdom said I was the wrong person to lead a ballot initiative. It's never been done before. And that was a weight that I carried for quite some time. And just to see, my wife stepped in there and I mean, she turned that thing out. She took something that was supposed to die, right, and gave it life. And now it's impacting millions upon millions of people's lives, and it's going to continue to do so for quite some time. And she created that legacy off of something that somebody didn't think was going to be worth it.
She is that North Star.
She is that North Star.
Desmond, you have been recognized by Time 100. You have been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Talk to us about the moment, and I want to hear from both of you, when you received that news of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, yeah, that was, well, I got to back up because I think I want to talk about the moment when I found out that I was named one of the 100 most influential people for Time Magazine. And I was sitting in the car in our driveway with my wife, and I looked at my wife and I said, baby, you talking about the United States? And her answer was, nah, baby, they talk about the world. And my response, my initial response was, baby, there are more than 100 countries in the world, right? And it just blew my mind. And I remember when the MacArthur people was, when I got the Genius Award, I think like a couple years later, that I had to pull over on the side of the road and just like breathe because I didn't understand because the MacArthur Genius Award is you can't even apply for that, right? And I remember they said that, yeah, this is the most prestigious award that an American can get in the United States. The only thing higher than this is the Nobel Peace Prize. So I was really grateful that I got MacArthur Genius. And then to turn around and then have the same organization who nominated Dr. Martin Luther King surprise me and nominate me, right, in my org for this, it was that moment, and I was like, wait a minute, there's so many other amazing people out there doing the work. Why me, right? And I struggled with that for a while, but then I understood, or at least I came to believe now, that it was nothing but the universe just saying, yes, you are on the right track, like Sheena was saying earlier, that the things that we were doing, even though it seemed like impossible for us to be in that position, we were right where we were supposed to be, right? Because we are in alignment with the universe, and it's a simple thing. It's about how do we give back? Because everything that God created or higher power created takes a little and gives a little. And so being in alignment, right, and making sure that our lives are dedicated to giving back to improving other people's lives. It was the universal saying, yes, you're doing it right, and you're leading with love. And I think that was so important because our work never, either one of our works, we don't attack people. We don't talk about what's bad and what's ugly. We talk about what's beautiful, what's right, what's possible, right? And it's just so much in alignment. And I think that's why, because there's a lot of other brilliant people who are system impacted that I think could be even more deserving of the accolades that I receive. But I think it's because we have this special niche. And then, of course, when God brings people together, he brings them together for a reason. And so I already know that if I wasn't with Sheena, I wouldn't be getting any of that. I'd be totally honest.
Tell them about the when you embarrassed me at Time Gala and you told the man that you should have been on the Time magazine cover instead of The Rock.
Well, yeah.
But say why.
We were sitting at the table with the Time, with the executives from Time magazine, and I told them in much harsher words that they messed up, right? And we was having a good time. But I told them that issue, I think they had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on the cover. And I told them that they should have not had him. They should have put me on the cover, right? And my wife tell me I look good, and I do believe that. But it's not for that reason. Because what I told them is that when the readers see me on the cover, then they would realize that you don't have to be a movie star. You don't have to be a billionaire. You don't have to be a politician to have an impact in your community, your state, or even the world, right? That if that guy who was addicted to crack cocaine and homeless and in and out of prison and jail, if he could be one of the 100 most influential people in the world, then what does that say about me? Or what does that say about any one of you all in this room, right? And people need to know that the characteristics and the traits that are necessary to be impactful in this world is already inside of each and every one of us, right? And we could shed all of those negative stereotypes. We could shed all those things that try to make us think that we're less than or we're limited in what we can do, right? And so now, even with the Nobel Peace Prize nomination, that a person who has been incarcerated or a person who's been homeless or addicted to drugs can no longer say that my life is limited to just going so far. Man, and I'll be honest with you, a person that's incarcerated can now say, shoot, I can run for president of the United States. That's no longer off limits to me. And so my wife, I know, Governor of Florida, we getting there. But no, and I think that is so important, that we don't put limits on people. There is no limit, to what we can do. We talk about AI and all that, but the greatest machine is us.
Go ahead. I'm going to let you weigh in before I move into the next question.
He said it all on that.
Okay. All right. So in the book, one thing that really resonated with me was a phrase that you shared, that you had never had a need that wasn't supplied. Talk to us about how the faith for both of you, your faith, has guided you throughout this journey and how it has been a part of that narrative.
I'm laughing because Desmond's face almost got us messed up sometimes, I feel like. But it all works out. You go ahead.
Yeah, listen, you take care of God's business, he takes care of yours. Even when I started in this work, I was living in a 3-quarter-way house, right? And that's transitional housing for people who are recovering from, who completed substance abuse treatment. And I'm living in a house full of men. I'm managing this recovery house. I'm going to school, right? And there were times when I didn't have a job, right? But what I noticed was that everything that I needed, something always happened to allow me to get the things that I needed. Not the things that I wanted, but the things that I needed. All my basic needs were always met. And it was in that initial phase of the process that I understood that verse in the Bible, where faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, right? And I started understanding that faith was developing a level of expectation, that even though I didn't see it, right, I knew it was going to happen. And I started knowing and believing that as long as I focus my attention on what I can do as a human being to make the world a better place, even for just one person, right? Even maybe it's just a smile. Maybe it's just an affirmation or whatever, right? Whatever it is I can do to make the world a better place, if I could just focus on that, all the other things is going to come, right? And I tell folks, I never prayed for the wife. I never prayed for the house. I never prayed for cars, a good job, or any of that. When I used to get on my knees and pray, I would pray for my enemies. That was the first people I prayed for, the people who I thought hated me. And you know what I would pray? That they would get to experience the love that I'm experiencing with my relationship with my higher power. That's what I prayed for my enemies. And then I prayed for my family's safety. And then for me, I just prayed for the strength, wisdom, stamina, and perseverance to be able to continue to do God's work. That was it. And what I have discovered, and it's evidence even through Sheena, is that when you focus on, right, I met Sheena because I was focusing on trying to get a convening together. That's where my mind was at, how to expand awareness about felon disenfranchisement. And God just put everything in place when it's time. And it's just evident by us being here.
Yeah, when I joke about the faith piece, I'm gonna tell you, so I told you, it ain't been an easy journey. Like, even financially, like our organization will have more money in the bank than us. Desmond didn't give himself a paycheck till 2017.
2017, yeah.
2017. I think he paid me first. But I remember he got his first monetary award. It was a Puffin Prize, and John Legend presented it to him. It was $100,000. I was like, thank you, Jesus. I was like, look at this. I was like, now finally we're gonna pay off a debt or do something. And we're on a call. I'm like excited. I'm sitting there like we don't win the lottery. I'm sitting there proud. And he's on the Zoom and he makes his announcement. He goes, and I am gonna match $75,000 to the fines and fees program. What the hell? I was like all the life came out of me. I was blinking like this. I couldn't stop blinking. I was like, what did he just say? He's doing what? He's like, yes, because this is the time that the state said that you had to pay off your fines and fees to vote. And Desmond being committed to his vision, he said, I'm gonna match, if donors will match me, I'm taking $75,000. And I just knew then, I was like, who could draw up these papers for me? Because I know he lying. And I remember coming home, I was just waiting. I was trying not to show out right then. I was just waiting. And I got home, I said, what the hell is you doing? We got these bills and this. And I remember 2016, my car got repossessed. Like we was really going. And Desmond said, Sheena, like God is gonna bless us. He said he did bless us. He did bless us. I started quoting scripture. I said, the wealth of the wicked is held over the righteous. I was like, that was our blessing. You just took it from us. And Desmond said, honey, God is gonna bless us. He said, watch, it's gonna come back to us. I mean, y'all, I was mad for a while. I was real mad.
She picked up points for her scriptures, I tell you that. Yeah.
But it did, and that was what year? I'm not sure what year was it.
That was 2020, and I gotta say, because Christian that's right here, Christian Grimm and Spitfire, they worked with us like early morning, 6 in the morning, and we got over 90,000 people across the country to donate over $30 million to help people pay fines and fees. And you know what? We did it in about a month and a half, right? And the only mistake I made, was that we had a very short window to actually pay off people fines and fees and then get them registered, because the registration deadline is 30 days before an election. So that gave us about a month and a half to spend close to $30 million, right? And so my only mistake was not bringing Sheena in on the spending piece, right? Because I know she knows how to spend. And so we got, we were able to really impact the lives of over 40,000 people. But the reason why I said that was because, the reason why I brought that up was, so when I got the Puffin Prize, my mind immediately went back to the work that we did with Spitfire and some other friends to get all these people to donate. And I'm like, I just felt compelled that, that I too should also figure out a way to step into the fray. And we took that 75, what was it, 75?
Yes, sir.
Around 75K and turned it into almost $200,000, right? And that went to help people pay off their fines and fees. But like I say, that money came back.
It did.
In more ways than one.
It
did.
Right.
$200 million came back from that $100,000. So, you both have really emphasized the importance of enabling leaders to fail and to fail forward on their own terms. So, question for you both is, how do you create that culture that supports organizing? How do we create a culture that foundations and those who entrust you to carry on that vision can foster an environment where you can be experimental, where you can fail?
I think, first of all, and I appreciate Traven for inviting us to be on this stage, because I think we are a good example, right? Talking about people who didn't have the technical qualifications or the academia qualifications to be in positions of leadership, but we took over projects that weren't going anywhere and we turned it into what we have today. I think we stand as a great example of how people closest to the pain can be instrumental in making things happen. But when I was thinking about the asset framing piece, right? And every time I sit through Travian's sessions, I just learned something new, right? But one of the things that came to me was, man, yes, it is good to shift our thinking on how we're framing things, and it's good to articulate it. But what's even better is when we actually emulate it through our actions, right? Because it sounds good to you, put that positive spin, but if we're not engaging with directly impacted people in a positive way, right, or in a way that makes them feel empowered, then, that could be like problematic, and I think we would come off as less authentic to the very same people who we're supposed to be working with. There's a couple of things that stuck out to me, was that when Sheena, and I think they had a clip of it there, when she talked about passing clean slate in New York, the thing that just blew my mind was, here she was in New York with the governor. They're getting ready to sign clean slate into law. You know what she does? She stops the entire show. Wait a minute. And you know what she did? Everybody that was surrounding the governor was like executives. But the people who actually did the work and matter of fact, it was a gentleman out there that worked for years on clean slate, and he wasn't even going to be able to benefit because of the nature of his charge, but he was there. She stopped everything and went and got this guy and made sure that he was up there with the governor, right? And so I think that if we breathing, through our words, right, and our thinking, that if we're breathing this asset framing approach or this positive approach, then we've got to also exemplify it through our actions and make sure that if we're saying that this person is, what's good about this or what's possible is about the benefits that this person has or the opportunities that this person has, then we have to give that person, right, that stage to be able to feel that we feel that way about them, and not just by word, but by the words coming out of our mouth.
I try to, I'm always telling leaders, just be your authentic self. I don't even know how to just be my authentic self. Like, where you see Sheena on the stage is where you can see Sheena later. But I've had the privilege of having community of support where I could be myself. And I'm big on not being transactional, but transformational. And what I mean by that, I remember telling donors with Desmond, I was like, look, I want you to transform through this journey. I want you to go on this journey with us. I want you to know when we're excited, like when we're succeeding, when we're winning, but also when it's not feeling too good. And I think the one time was when Desmond had got some funding. Again, funders like, you should do this. And he was like, you need to do this, Sheena, in your organizing program. I'm like, that don't work. I don't know why you're telling me to do this. He goes, that's what they funded us to do. I'm like, it don't work. I don't know why you're telling us to do this. Like, So I did it because he was my boss. And so I remember it was like digital organizing, right? And it wasn't,
Distributive organizing.
It came out that Bernie said, Becky Bonds, and he's
Bonds.
like, this is gonna work. I'm like, not for directly impacted people. It worked for the campaign, but when they did it, I remember telling Desmond, I was like, look, Desmond, you gotta go back to the funder and say, this is not working. You gotta be like, just be truthful and let them know, like, you know. And I remember when Desmond, he was hesitant. I was like, I'm willing to like support you on this. And he went back to tell him like, this doesn't work. And I just remember that just kind of took a weight off of us. And just like, the funder was like, thank you for just being open about it. Like no one ever tells them what don't work. And we didn't have time to lie. Like we had a short amount of window to win Amendment 4. And so I would just say, you know, being able to be authentic, honest, transparent, creating space for your investees to have that honest conversation. We need to pivot around strategy. Things change, especially in this policy work, you know.
And not restricted, right? And so, you know, when you look at the different masterpieces in the different genres, whether it's art, music, sculpture, paintings, or whatever, what you find is that when you look at the masterpieces, that artist was able to color outside the lines. He did something outside of the norm, right? And that was a key element in creating that masterpiece. But when you try to restrict someone just to color with along the dots, then you restrict their creativity, right? And then they're scared to fail. They're scared to go out because they may lose funding. And so I always tell folks that no, you have to allow people the ability to fail, right? And especially when we see it in our white counterparts, like we've seen white counterparts fail time after time after time after time after time again. And then after they failed the 10th time, they changed the name of their organization to fail 10 more times, right? The same person, just a different name, right? But they would continue.
There's some black ones in there too.
Well, listen, I have not seen any black organizations lead a ballot initiative yet, right? We were the first ones, right? And so the thing was, I think that when you see your counterparts being able to fail so many times and reinvent themselves.
And get funded, get funded.
And the minute you don't meet a deliverable, then you're looking around and trying to figure out how to do it, then that actually, it chokes the creativity out of you, and you just become nothing but a robot. And I don't think we want robots. I think we want to be able to empower people to be their most creative selves, right? And that is where you get the greatest reward, right? It's not always the data. It's not always the data. It's something deeper than that.
Are y'all taking notes? Are you taking this back to your teams? All of it. These are lessons that we all need to learn in philanthropy. So, do you want to add on to that before I? Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about storytelling, and I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience next, and we'll have a mic. If you raise your hand, I want you to be able to ask them a couple of questions. How do you address this stigma that still exists around formerly incarcerated individuals? And what can be done, because we have a lot of communicators in this room. We have a lot of communications firms, professionals, people who drive narrative and messaging. What can be done? What more can be done to change public perception?
You want to start? You want me to start? I'm going to start. She's still thinking. So we actually have a friend. As a matter of fact, this guy was one of Sheena's professors, Dr. Vincent Ntandi, and he wrote a book called African Americans and the Atomic Bomb. And basically the book was about African Americans' community response to the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And you know, at the time, the advocates in the African American community, they were a little terrified, or concerned, I should say, because they were like, man, if the United States can drop a bomb and kill all those people just with one bomb, well, shoot, what the heck they gonna do to us when we already know they got issues with us? And so they thought, they pushed along the human rights element, piece about how that was wrong what the United States did. But the piece in the book that really captured me the most was the book talked about prior to the dropping of the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, United States engaged in a massive propaganda campaign, right? That like depicted Japanese people as like animals, monsters, and had a narrative about Japanese people going to come and burn down our villages and rape our women and children. The whole, and it was just a massive campaign that did two things. Number one, it dehumanized the Japanese people. And number two, what it did was desensitize us as to their humanity. And they did, I would say, such a good job at doing that, that when they did drop the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and killed innocent women, children, and men, rather than there be moral outrage, there was actually celebrations in the streets. That we actually celebrated the murder of innocent women, children, and men. And I immediately thought about that narrative that was created so many decades ago about even the black people and black men being dangerous and being uneducated and all of the negative stereotypes. And then we move into like the 90s when you had the 94 crime bill, where you hear terms as super predators, right? And they were talking about our kids, right? But because of the narrative, we were able as communities to embrace these nice sounding policies like No Child Left Behind, like zero tolerance policies, like stand your ground. And all of these policies decimated, right, the African American community, right? And we were able to put children in cages that we wouldn't even put on conditions we wouldn't even put animals in, right? And we were okay with that because of that narrative, right? And I just remember, and we see it here. We see it right now, right? Whether it's the conflict in the Middle East, we see it in our own communities. A narrative has that power to make people see another human being and not see another human being. They see something other. They see a monster. They see a terrorist. They see an illegal, right? All of these things they see other than this another human being. And matter of fact, that's my brother. That's my sister. We all came from the same creator, right? And we totally forget about that deep down yearning that we have to actually be connected to that person. Now, let me tell you, and I'm going to shut up after this. And I know it's there, and that's the part that it frustrates me at points, but yet it still inspires me, right? Because I know it's there because we always show glimpses of it during natural disasters, right? Right down there when the condo collapsed, right? And people was rushing to rescue people and nobody cared. Like, you see a person on the ground dying, you don't care who he voted for. You're not going to ask him if he voted for Donald Trump or what. We're not going to ask him if he, what type of immigration status or sexual identity. None of that matters when in moments of crisis, that our natural selves automatically connects with another person's humanity. And here's the beautiful thing about it. We show the ultimate form of love because some of us are even willing, just instinctively, to risk our own lives to save the life of someone who we don't even know. Just think about that. And that's the ultimate that's the ultimate display of love. And we're able to do that, but then right after that, we're now hating each other, or fearful of each other, and just tearing each other down because of the labels that society put on us, the narratives that society creates, and that narrative shifts. It shifts, right? I believe that when we can go deeper and connect along the lines of humanity, man, we'll be well on our way to actually solving the very same things that we say we need to solve.
That's deep.
Sheena, go ahead.
What am I supposed to do after he do all that? He done took us high and low in the back of here. Like
That's what Moses does.
that's what this is Moses.
With the F word.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think it's
Okay.
a question.
Well, I want to see audience hands jettisoning into the air. I know y'all have questions. And while we wait for our questions, I have a question for you both on your legacy. You have been champions for the voiceless, and you have influenced generations that will come behind you and change the lives of tens of millions of reentering citizens. What's the legacy that you want to leave for your children, for your community, for this earth after you depart it?
The one legacy I would want to leave is that people will have known that we believe that nobody was voiceless. It's just who was willing to listen, and that we amplified the voices that couldn't be heard. And that's how I really kind of approach that. You know, people say that a lot, and I just had a moment one time. I was like, we all have a voice. It's just who's willing to listen. And sometimes we got to be the amplification for them. And so anytime we're walking in the room, you know, it's not about me. It's not I. I'm here on behalf of millions of other people like myself, mothers, directly impacted women, formerly incarcerated people. But the legacy, you know, I'm always sitting with that. What is the legacy that we're leaving behind? I think it's definitely going to be more than just the work that we're doing in the criminal justice field. You know, I'm still pondering on that. You know, I want to see our communities thrive. You know, I dream of our communities thriving. I dream of our children, you know, growing up in a space where they're not scared to go to school, or my grandchildren are scared to go to school. Yeah, I'm still pondering on what the full legacy would be. At this point, whatever God has for us. Like,
so one of the things, and Sheena mentioned it a long time ago, was that she talked about Dr. Martin Luther King, and one context was that, you know, he had to struggle, and even when he passed, you know, his family had to struggle a little bit, and so Sheena was always making me conscious of that. You know, we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves too as well. But then the other piece to that was that when Dr. Martin Luther King was doing his work, his children were all babies, right? We were fortunate. When we was doing our work, our children were like teenagers or getting ready to become teenagers. And so they actually got to, like, our youngest, who is now a senior in high school, he was like my top petition collection, because nobody say no to a little boy trying to get signatures. Right? And our son, whose video you've seen, he taught himself how to be actually our audiovisual person.
Just for disclaimer, we broke all child labor laws, like for real. But it was for the movement. Yeah. It was for democracy.
We had a son that led one of the biggest texting programs in the state during the campaign. Our daughter, she was in
Black Youth Vote.
All of our kids were engaged, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy, because getting them to competition and all that. Oh yeah, you know they were pushing back, right? And you know we had some clashes, but today I can say that they understand they finally understood the importance of the moment that they were in back then, and so that legacy within our among our kids, I think, goes on. The other thing is that our two oldest sons just got engaged, right? And one of the things that I think,
God, it is sons, I got to pay for the wedding.
Right? I know, right? One of the things that I want to own is that, you know, I think that we have given them a great blueprint on how to love each other, how to, you know, I think my sons see, you know, how googly-eyed I am over this woman here, and how I go out of my way to make her happy, and how she go out of her way to make me happy. And I think that is so important, right? Because it is also, when you talk about that what love should be about, and that is really working hard to, I think it's a verse in the Bible say, wanting for your neighbor what you want for yourself, right? And so when you fight hard to make sure that your neighbor, all right, or your partner gets what you desire, right? And your partner is fighting hard to do the same thing. Nobody is shortchanged, nobody is disappointed, right? And it translates into even the book that I think Heather McGee wrote about, Zero Sum, right? When we talk about, because we get caught up in, or what we're gonna lose if somebody gains something, and we're looking at it wrong. It's about, man, what do we gain as a community when that person is able to thrive and able to engage in like economic mobility and be able to participate in democracy, how that benefits us as a whole. And so I think that the love that we display for our kids is also a love that we put out there for the world, because we think that that is like a blueprint for actually moving some things, right? And shifting hearts and minds, because once we realize that we don't lose anything, right? That we're not gonna get hurt, right? Because that person wins something or gains a step up, right? When we realize that we can keep our foot on the brakes and let that person cut in front of us. We're not losing anything. We don't have to tear our hair out.
Take it away from the questions.
But no, I think that,
You're not going to lose anything if someone gets.
So, but I think that is so important, and that is a legacy that I think is more like a subliminal legacy that is worthy of being left behind. And I'm good. I can die today, and I'm okay.
And how people see formerly incarcerated people or directly impacted people, that they could lead movements, that they could make change, they could have impact even outside of this sector, and so. That is a legacy. Also changing narratives. I know Desmond wrote an open letter in Time magazine. I wrote an open letter that got placed in some different places around the use of, the word felon and how the dehumanizing language. And I believe we're all continuing to trying to change the way people define people.
I know it is Friday, y'all, but we went to church today. And I do want to have at least one audience question. Because we do have a couple more minutes. So I see in the very back. Please stand and tell us where you're from and ask your question.
Good morning. Thank you. Mike, I am 100% present and here, having funded youth justice work in the past. I'm the Executive Director of Communities for Just Schools Fund. My heart is with the young people and families in Georgia who went through the school shooting. I'm so excited about the power of young people, and I'm wondering if you have any advice for philanthropy on how to show up for our young people.
Wow, thank you for that question.
You the expert. I'm saying she's the expert. She pointed to me, but she's the one that, one of the things that attracted me to Sheena was the fact that as a young girl, because her parents were in the union, her mom was in the union, and she always talked about, I'm surprised she didn't say it, about how she made sandwiches for the first Million Man March, right? And so she was brought up in that world, and then she became part of the young leaders with the AFL-CIO, of course, Black Youth Vote alumni, along with Andrew Gillum.
Proximity is the answer.
Yep, but this is what I'm saying. How do you, because my wife was a youth organizer and she was a young person coming up in that world. What is it that you would want?
I said proximity. So philanthropy, I think it's proximity. I think it's proximity to all the issues that they're trying to fund or support. I talked about how I had folks in a room in San Francisco making decisions about how they felt money and stuff need to move, never doing site visits, never meeting folks, never going into the community. It's really important to be in proximity because, listen, what the youth are wanting is not the things that we think, right? And so they want to be seen, they want to be heard, and you got to give them space to fail and succeed. And they have so much creativity, and we should lean into that, whether it's through the arts, whether it's through music, whether, it's just in space. Let them just be youth. It's just proximity.
So final question, and if you do have additional questions, they are here, folks. They will be around for the next day. My last question for both of you is, tell us what a world looks like where neither of your organizations need to exist, where you don't need to exist driving forward this movement.
I'm excited about that. Actually, listen, we are in the work to work ourselves out of a job. Like, I need to be like chilling in the Maldives somewhere, like with Beyonce and Jay-Z on a yacht. Like, I want that. And, if y'all know, let it know, or Richard Branson's, island, whoever. But yeah, where folks are no longer, like, we are doing that work. Like, we have embarked on a big narrative project, narrative change project for a clean slate, where people are no longer defined by their records, where that is not a conversation about a second chance, that, our children's would no longer have to figure out how they got to remove barriers for themselves to get a job or just to get education or feed their families. And so I'm looking forward to us changing that. And I know the work that we are doing has generational impact. I'm looking forward to.
I struggle with that because I think that question is more aspirational than anything, and I know that sometimes sometimes that might throw us off, right, and not let us live in the now. But then there's another part of me that says that I don't want that perfect world where I'm not needed. I want to organize my way out of a job, but we need to build a bench and we need to invest in other folks to continue to do the work. I think struggle is necessary, right? I don't want a world where there's no struggle because it's going to be boring as hell, right? And we're going to become weak, right? And then maybe another planet might come and invade us then, Because here's the deal. What science has taught me is that in order for us to gain strength, we have to go through a struggle, right? That if you want muscle, you have to tear muscle. And in order for you to tear muscle, it has to experience some type of resistance to make you fight through it. It is through the struggle that we become stronger. If we remain dormant, if we don't fight for anything, if we don't have stress about anything, then we actually wither away. Right? Some of the buoyancy of life is being able to, you think me and Sheena agree on everything? But our love has become stronger because of our struggle, because what we were able to power through together, not because we were just saying yes to each other and being and agreeing with everything. No, you don't want to live a life like that.
I wouldn't mind if you say yes.
That's what she does. No, let me tell you what she don't mind. That saying that my wife is always right, and even when she's wrong, she's right. She don't mind that piece, but guess what? We have to go through it. And I think that there's got to be some sort of a struggle there, but there are things that we can solve. There's things that we can evolve from. And I think as part of that evolution, more issues may come up, right? And then we struggle through that. But I don't think we get to that world where advocacy is not needed, right? And I think that advocacy helps us live a more vibrant life.
And I know that I may not get to see that world that I imagine, but I know it will be much easier for the generation next because of the legacy and the foundation that we built for them.
Yes, your children will see it, the children that you all are supporting, the children that we have. So with that, ladies and gentlemen.
And not just us now. Let me stop right now. It's not just what we've done. It's what each and every one of you all, the role that each and every one of you all have played in this ecosystem that would make it much easier for people in the next generation and generation after that to really be successful. And so I just want to make sure that you all are part of this.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the North Star and Moses.
I love that.
Thank you both.